Hello and welcome to Past Is Prologue. My name is Patrick Spottiswoode. I'm Director of Globe Education at Shakespeare's Globe in London. And those of you who've seen some of these interviews before, please do not be alarmed that I am not Ian Gallanar. Do not worry, he hasn't been toppled off from his throne. His throne hasn't been usurped. There hasn't been a coup. It's just that some of us felt that having heard him interview various people in the Shakespeare world, that he deserved to be interviewed himself because he has a lot of experience and things to share about his career, both as an actor, a director, a playwright, and as an artistic director and founder of a Shakespeare festival. So, Ian, welcome to your own show.
Thanks, Patrick. This is very strange.
It is a bit surreal, isn't it? But you interviewed me back on May the 13th. The date is tattooed on my conscience. And so it's lovely to be able to turn the tables and interview you and ask you a few questions. So I'm going to start by, as you always do, generously reading people's biogs to give the audience, the viewers, a sense of what your past has been like. So here we go. Ian is the founder and artistic director of the Chesapeake Shakespeare Company in Baltimore, Maryland, and is currently the president of the Shakespeare Theatre Association. He founded the Chesapeake Shakespeare Company back in 2002 and has directed over 40 productions for the company in its 18-year history. Productions include Hamlet, King Lear, Romeo and Juliet, Othello, A Midsummer Night's Dream, Richard III, and some of those lesser-known Shakespeare plays, Cyrano de Bergerac, Our Town, and Alice in Wonderland. His own adaptation of Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol has run 6 consecutive years and has become Baltimore's best-selling resident production of the last 20 years. He also founded CSC's, the Chesapeake Shakespeare Company's education program, which started by providing summer camp opportunities for children, but has since grown under his leadership with the great, wonderful education director, Ron Hennigan, into Maryland's largest, most significant theatre education program, serving approximately 15,000 students a year. CSC offers student matinees, in-school residencies, summer camps, classes, and other educational opportunities, usually from its education space called the Studio, which is right next door to the theatre, but I guess that's closed down at the moment because of the lockdown, but it's lovely to see that you're having the Studio online. So the Studio continues, but in an online existence. Ian did have a life before the Chesapeake Shakespeare Company. His life included work as an actor, a playwright, and a director in theatres across the United States. These included serving as artistic director for the Repertory Theatre of America, the National Theatre for Children, Minnesota Shakespeare in the Park, and the Small Change Original Theatre. He wrote and created the national live theatre tours of Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego and Newton's Cradle. Newton's Apple, sorry, not Newton's Cradle, Newton's Apple. His scripts have been seen by more than 1 million alumnus of the Indiana University of Pennsylvania. He's a Telly Award winner, a Howie Award winner, and a Helen Hayes Tribute Award winner. In 2015, he was invited to become a member of the prestigious National Theatre Conference, and he's also a member of the Dramatists Guild. And had I known all of this about you before, I would have treated you with a lot more respect. And I
just made up it's just all fictional. I made up a long bio so I wouldn't have to answer any questions.
Well, you are a playwright as well, so fiction is your métier. So. Anyway, so I'm going to follow the format of the interviews that you've led over the last few months because it's a nice format. That means that I'm going to end with the lightning round, and these are quick fire questions to test your mettle. And as I performed so appallingly badly on that lightning round when you interviewed me, this is my chance for revenge. And I'm going to trip you up as much as I can, so you just watch out. But let's start with the first question that you always ask your interviewees, and that's that first meeting, that earliest memory of meeting Shakespeare.
Meeting Shakespeare. So it was kind couple of false starts with Shakespeare. In 5th grade, my 5th grade teacher, Ms. Roop, she produced and directed a 30-minute version or something like that of Macbeth. And I played Banquo, which I loved doing because I got to put on ghost makeup. And that was, I was very interested in it, and I asked my parents, who were Shakespeare lovers, about it, and my mom gave me a copy of Complete Works, or lent me a copy of Complete Works, and I looked at it, and I was not a good reader, and so I kind of threw my hands up in surrender, and sort of left Shakespeare for a bit. I couldn't relate to it on the written page. Then at high school, I went to high school in a little college town. It's surrounded by coal country in Pennsylvania. We studied Romeo and Juliet in high school or junior high, something, I don't know. And they took us, we all marched down to Main Street in this little town and watched the Zeffirelli Romeo and Juliet, which was kind of a tradition for probably, I don't know, a decade or so. And I liked it a whole lot. Two memories of that is, one thing is there's a brief moment of nudity in the film, and because we were in Pennsylvania, state of blue laws at the time, they put a piece of paper in front of the projector so that we wouldn't see any of the naughty bits. I remember that. And
then film.
Yeah, protecting all of us from and then the other thing I remembered about it was that there was a test, and on the test, after working on Romeo and Juliet for a couple months in school, and there was a test, and they asked us about why Friar John wasn't able to get the warning to Romeo about Juliet. And of course, as we all know in the play, it's because of the plague. It's particularly fitting time for this right now, or some epidemic. But on in the Zeffirelli movie, they don't do that. They just show them like passing, like ships in the night. They show Friar John on one road and somebody else on another, and we instantly know they didn't make it. So that's the answer that I give, because that's what I saw, and I thought it was a terrible trick pulled on us, because I got it wrong, and I thought, well, listen, aren't we supposed to be watching this performance and talking about that? But no, that was incorrect for us. So I got a little frustrated with Shakespeare, and this is a long answer, but and I had a bit of a short career as a bad actor, and if you're a male actor in your 20s in the United States, eventually you're going to be in a Shakespeare play, because there's just a lot of work, and it was okay, and I played a lot of kind of. I was thin and had good hair, and I smoked cigarettes. So they put me in the Angevin roles,
Yeah, and this is when you were 6.
Yes, right. Yeah. So I played Orlando and Centio and this kind of parts. They were like, not that interesting to me.
Did you study theatre at university? Were you a theatre major?
I was at Indiana University of Pennsylvania, which is the worst name for a college ever, but it's part of the Pennsylvania State University system, and it's in a town called Indiana, which is why it's called.
Yeah.
And I had a great education, mostly because it was a brand new program, and so they didn't have a lot of rules, so I could just kind of go, well, I'll just do this until somebody tells me not to. So I got to direct a lot of things and do a lot of plays that normally they wouldn't let students do. And I learned a lot from, my own mistakes. I was a director primarily. I did train as an actor, but I was always ambition to be a director.
And what is it about directing that what led you to directing? What is it about directing that you like so much?
I didn't want to have to depend on so many other people's view of the work. Like as an actor, I felt like I'm just doing this little piece over here of the work. But as a director, I get to have some say, whether it's listened to or not, that's another thing. But at least I got some say about the whole work. So whatever we're trying to express, I've got a big chunk of that action.
And so directing at university is one thing, being in the theatre department, but then going out into the big wide world of unemployment and choosing a career in the theatre is another. What led you to actually take that major step?
First of all, I didn't know how to do anything else. I wasn't very good at other stuff. And you're right, as a 22-year-old or 25-year-old or 30-year-old, it's really hard to get hired as a director in the theater because, you're young. I could get some work as an actor. So that's what paid the rent. That's what kept it as a career in the theater. But I didn't have a great passion for it, and a passion for theater, but the acting part just, it just didn't do it for me. And were
you directing Shakespeare straight away? Was it clear that when you left that Shakespeare was going to be the author the playwright that you wanted to work with?
Not at all. Nope. I did not meet Harold Bloom at a bar in New Haven, and I did not improvise Shakespeare with Robin Williams at Juilliard. I plugged along, if Shakespeare came my way, I'd do it, but it wasn't a primary interest. And I was working kind of as a theater generalist. And then an opportunity came across. I was artistic director of another theater, children's theater, in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And they needed somebody to take over doing Shakespeare in the Park in the Twin Cities. And, I wasn't really qualified to do it, but I could direct, and I was a good storyteller. I was a good director, a good storyteller. So I thought, well, maybe I'll give it a shot. And once I did, my whole life changed because I was sort of wondering whether, and I don't know how old I was. I was probably in my late 30s. I was kind of wondering whether I wanted to change careers because I was feeling a bit like, maybe I've said all I want to say in the theater. So directing a production of Much Ado About Nothing, I went, oh, I could do this forever and still not get it right. Yeah. This is, and not only that, it's a Shakespeare for me as a director. What I love so much about it is that it is adaptable is the wrong word, but it's flexible. It's like a melody in music. You've got a melody, but you can do all sorts of things with it, and it's still that song. It's like John Coltrane's version of what is it? A few of my favorite things. That old Rodgers and Hart song. Yeah. It's like that. It's like there's this melody, this nice melody that Richard Rodgers created for us, and then John Coltrane goes all over with it, but it's still the same song. And that possibility of being able to, aspire to be, I would never pretend to be, but aspire to be somebody, approach the art like John Coltrane, what was very exciting. Mm-hmm. And still, it remains exciting to me. Yeah. So it changed my life.
Some people would.
Once I started doing it, I said, that's, I'll do other stuff. But this is really what I want to do.
So some people would say that, choosing a career as a director is unfortunate, but setting up a Shakespeare company sounds like carelessness. What then led you to want to set up a Shakespeare company in 2002? And And then why the move to Baltimore?
That's a really long story, but I'll try to do the shortened version of it. I had the opportunity to manage another company, a touring theater company. Didn't have a home, it just toured across the United States. It was located in Texas. I did not want to move to Texas. I could move this company wherever I wanted to because it was a touring company. And I thought, from this company, I can also create a Shakespeare festival or Shakespeare Company. Originally, probably, I thought of it as a summer thing, but and really, my wife at the time and I, we looked at maps and we said, okay, what major city in America doesn't have a Shakespeare festival?
Huh.
And we found 3 of them that looked interesting to us that would also work sort of for our touring company. One of them was Savannah, Georgia, but we decided it rained too much in Savannah, Georgia. So if we ever wanted to do anything outdoors, we'd just never be able to do it. Memphis, Tennessee was another one. And frankly, it was just too much in the middle of the country. And then the third one was Baltimore, Maryland. And we came to visit Baltimore. I knew Baltimore a little bit, but not that well. And I liked it a lot. And also it just felt like a place. It was just an opportunity. You know, like I didn't want to go someplace where we weren't needed. I didn't want to go to New York City. I didn't want to go to, Chicago. I didn't want to go where people in the community were served by a classic theater company. Baltimore felt like, I felt like I could make a difference here in Baltimore, and this work could make a difference. And I felt there was a need for it. And that's why Baltimore, it was meant to actually start a little bit earlier, but my oldest daughter was born in 1999, and we thought, oh, we'll raise a baby, run another theater company, and also start a Shakespeare company at the same time. The Shakespeare Company lost out. So this postponed it a few years. And then, once that happened, excuse me, we in the forming of that, we met some great partners, including my partner in all things Shakespeare, Leslie Malin, and we just went forward. And the story that we tell, which is a true story, is the first show that we did was a little showcase show. We did Twelfth Night. 100 people saw the show, and that was over a course of 2 weeks. 100 people saw the show, so there was some pretty slim honest, but and I frankly thought before we started rehearsal, I went, I'll just start the company, I'll hand the reins off to somebody else, and I'll kind of go upon my merry way. But I loved the work so much, and I loved the people that and the people that were working on that. We all kind of said, hey, this feels different. This feels special. Wow. And then we haven't looked back. That was
that show
November.
That show, that Twelfth Night, was in what sort of venue?
It's a little black box in a community arts center in the suburbs of Baltimore. It was, we were lucky enough to get a little write-up in the Baltimore newspaper, back when newspapers existed, and also wrote about things like theater. Yeah. And we got a nice little write-up, which sort of, put us on the map a bit. But it was just a little tiny space, black box space. Our set was literally made of 2 things. I don't know if they call them the same thing in the UK. Now I can't even think of what they're called in the United States. They're like, what are they called? I can't remember. They're what you put at a warehouse, what you put material on. Pallets, that's what we call them, wooden pallets. They're kind of flat wooden pallets that you put, when you're at a warehouse and you're moving stuff from one place to another. So we use those for platforms because there was a bunch of them in the warehouse. We were in a big industrial building in the basement, there was a whole bunch of them. You could just take them, and then the now global company called Under Armour, which people have heard of now. But then they were just starting, and they were in our building too. And Under Armour does, athletic clothing. And they were moving on up, and they left a bunch of bolts of fabric. And so we got these, we literally dumpster dove and went into the garbage and got these thrown out rolls of material and made sort of, not Mondrian, who's Rothko. We made these sort of Rothko backdrops out of this Under Armour thrown out material.
So 2002 then was that 12th Night. And then it took you what? It was 12 years of, you didn't have a building, so you were looking, you were finding spaces. I think I first saw your work in the ruins. I saw a wonderful performance of Julius Caesar in the ruins. And what led you to, what was the eventual decision to move in, to find a space of your own, to find a home, to find a building, rather than rent space?
So it was a couple of reasons. We did outdoor space. That's where our main focus was, outdoors. And we still do. Well, not this summer, but kind of festival style Shakespeare. And we also did what we call movable. Other people call it different things. Our friend Stephen Birdman calls it panoramic theater at New York Classical. But it's when the audience moves around with the actors and the action. We do that. We did that work where we go wherever we could find a space. I was interested in found spaces more than, our work is just never that good on a proscenium stage. It's not that, it doesn't work. And it's unsatisfying to me. We don't connect well to our audience, which is, we just took a clue from direct address and just kind of went with that. That's crucial to our work, is how we can connect to our audience members. So anyway, we kind of reached capacity with the outdoor stuff, and we thought, well, we could either just keep where we are and continue to do that, or we could try something else. And frankly, most of my career had been up to that point creating theater in non-theatrical spaces. But for instance, our outdoor home is not a theater. It's not an amphitheater. All it is the ruins of a building. When I'd done work in schools and parks and wherever, and maybe part of it was like, yeah, maybe I'll try those theaters, those buildings that are created just for this. And Leslie and I looked at a lot of spaces and found some that were interesting to us. It was very important that whatever space we had fit with the aesthetic of our work, which is, I'd talk about that nauseatingly for hours, but essentially we're in a room, we're sharing our experience, artists and audience. So we finally found, actually, we were about to close on another space. We found this beautiful, it's a Victorian bank building in downtown Baltimore that was, at that time, was used as a nightclub. It was a bank for 100 years, and it's a nightclub. And we looked at it, and it felt like, it doesn't look anything like an Elizabethan playhouse, nothing like it. But somehow the verticalness of the space, and there's there's a lot of sort of decorative, kind of that Victorian decorative stuff, even a little on steroids too, because it was renovated by Americans. And we saw it and we thought, yeah, we could do what we want to do here, which is that work that I talk about, that connects that is a shared experience. And also we have, I don't know, the best way I can describe it is we have one foot firmly in the world of original practices, for lack of a better phrase, and honoring the works and the words of our playwright. But we also have a foot in the modern world too. I find the work at the Globe much like this, although it's much, and you guys are doing it at a much higher level. But that it's 16th or 17th century language for a modern audience. That there's no pretense of, oh, we're doing this work as if somebody from 1604 is watching this play. And the space fit those needs for us. And so that's been, and I can't even believe it now, it's been 6 years. Of course, now it's a big office space because it's empty.
It's empty, yeah. And I mean, it's a huge undertaking, financial undertaking, to embark on, setting up a theatre in a building. I know that you're president of the Shakespeare Theatre Association. I know many of the members there are probably youngsters, like you and I were back when, and they may be thinking about, they're peripatetic. They're probably using found spaces or playing in parks. What are the hurdles that you faced? What advice do you have for them if they're thinking about embarking on finding their own home?
Yeah, hurdles I can come up with a lot. Advice I'm not so sure, but I would say this is counterintuitive. Don't spend too much. Don't make the project take too much time. Because if it expands over too much time, they lose interest in it. And one of the things I think the secrets of our particular venture was, and this was Scott Helm, who's a board member and a great supporter of the Chesapeake Shakespeare Company. And he said this as we were, planning on how to do it. Let's do it let's do it in a shorter amount of time, but let's do it intensely. And we are able to keep up momentum because of that. So that was a big, obstacles, nobody is standing on the corner saying, here, I'll write you a check to start a theater. There was a big perception.
You have a really you have a good board behind you.
Yeah. It's important to have a couple of key members in particular that are like, whatever you do, I'm supporting you. And we were lucky enough to have that. The government is important because you're doing it for your community. And if you can't get local officials interested, it's going to be really challenged to get people interested too. So it's kind of dry here today. What else? Obstacles, the perception of Shakespeare is still, in this country, it's still, it's for fancy people. And I had to overcome that. That's what I thought originally about Shakespeare too. And so in a city like Baltimore, which is, hard scrabble, a post-industrial city, there's a lot of like, what do you get? Shakespeare in Baltimore? No, it'll never work. So just sort of, and we knew it. We knew that was the problem, but a lot of people didn't. And overcoming that obstacle of like, this, it's funny. So we talked to some of our funders, our early funders, who, now that we've been there for 6 years, we have a longer relationship. They'll tell us, we thought originally that this didn't have much of a chance. We supported it because we hoped it would, but we didn't really.
So what has the building given you What, how has it helped the work, and how has it helped the company?
For one thing, it makes us such a difference to have a permanent home. Before, people recognized us, but they didn't recognize us as they kind of recognized us as a theater group rather than an arts institution. And once you get the building, people sort of, okay, they're institution's a tough word, but they're here for, if not the duration, at least for the near future. And then you become, you have skin in the game. You're a neighbor rather than than somebody who's just renting the place for a weekend or two. In terms of our work, we're still figuring out the space. It's not it's not theater now, but it's not a traditional theater space. So we're still learning its strengths and weaknesses and how to use it best and how not to use it. And now, I guess.
Sorry,
I was just going to.
Yeah, carry on.
the Zoom conversation.
Stop.
I'll just finish by saying it's always been so important to us too that our theater, our stage is not inaccessible, literally, so that we can get audience members and students in particular up on the stage. So they're standing on the stage, whether they're, we love doing the Citywide Shakespeare Festival where students from around the region come and perform on our stage. And it's not like, oh, this is our stage and you're honored to be, no, it's your stage too. It belongs to all of us. And then after the school matinees in particular, we love bringing kids up on stage, as many of them as we possibly can, and say, now it's ours, we're sharing this.
That's lovely. Well, and do you feel that, has your mission changed since 2002? Has it evolved, or?
I don't think our mission has changed. It's funny, we're right in the middle of our second big strategic planning process. We're a little bit on a hiatus because of the pandemic, but I tell you the thing that has changed for us the most, and it's really kind of what we were just talking about, and that's that we have to be not just serving our community, which is important, but we have to be a part of our community. And so these kind of community engagement projects, which started off as sort of almost an afterthought. Well, let's do, we can bring, I remember when we did Merchant of Venice out, we did it and performed in a church in Ellicott City. And we brought in a kind of a famous rabbi and talk about the show. And that felt important, but it was kind of like, yeah, this is ancillary programming. This is something that we'll do in addition to. And what we've understood now is no. It's all important and it all has to tie together. It all has to be planned and strategized, because that community engagement is just as important as the biggest show we do, if not more important. Yeah. We learned that, I think, two of the things that drive that for us, which doesn't change our mission, but it just changes maybe how we hope to achieve our mission. And that was, there's an Ira Aldrich play, Red Velvet, many people know it. And we did a lot of community engagement with that production. And that resonated with a lot of us. And then we did Anne Frank, we did Diary of Anne Frank, and we did a lot of partnerships with Jewish institutions and Jewish organizations in Baltimore, which has a rich history of Jewish culture. And that, again, resonated with people. And, neither of which were productions of Shakespeare. Obviously, Ira Aldrich dealt a lot with Shakespeare, but they were projects that were important to our community, that were treasured and valued by our community, and connected us to them.
Mm. Well, I think you interviewed me back in May, and it's only 2 months ago, but so much has been going on in the last 2 months. It's extraordinary. It's like a lifetime, really. One of which, of course, is that the pandemic has become even fiercer than we were discussing back in May, and particularly fiercer and more virulent in the United States, which of course means that you continue to be closed.
Yeah.
How is CSC coping with the pandemic? How are you surviving during this time with your doors closed?
It's tough. It's tough. I think personally the hardest year, or whatever, few months of my theatrical career. It's financially, we're down to a skeleton staff, skeletal, I think that's the right way to say it. Mm-hmm. And there are no full-time employees of the Chesapeake Shakespeare Company right now. I'm no longer, well, hopefully not forever, but I'm not a full-time employee. We just had to get the payroll down as small as we could get it, just to keep the doors open. We're doing as much education programming as we can. Right now it's virtual, although we are going to have the opportunity in about a month to do a little bit of outdoor stuff, socially distanced, safe stuff. We're not in a hurry to do just anything. Mm-hmm. Like there are, I don't fault them at all. There are many fine institutions that are like, yeah, we got to serve our community in some way, so we'll do this, 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 this. And we made a decision early on that we were going to limit our virtual performing. Actually, this Past Is Prologue is a result of that. We said, well, what can we do virtually that works virtually? Mm. I talk so much about that connection between our audience and our artists and Shakespeare too. We couldn't figure out how to do that as intensely as we want to do that, mm-hmm. In any other way but in person. Yeah. So we call it our fallow time. Came up with that term. Mm. We're using the time to go, okay, when we do open up, what can we do now to prepare ourselves for more success and to be a stronger organization when we are, rather than spreading our resources too thin now, and then once we open up going, okay, we don't have many resources to invest in what we hope will be the future. Mm.
And so you've got the one of the problems is you've got a building, and a building is, you've got, those bills, you can't furlough a building,
Yeah.
So those costs keep going. And you're very blessed to you've got a brilliant equal partner in greatness in terms of Leslie Maylin and as your managing director, keeping an eye on those finances. What I don't need to know numbers, but in terms, what's the sort of percentage of box office income every year for you versus sponsorship, grants, etc.? What's that percentage?
I'd love to, I'll answer that, but I do want to point out what's happening in the theater during this pandemic is we're relying on our superstar managing directors. Artistic directors, we sometimes, we get a little more attention, just because we're so glamorous. But anyway, at this point, I can strategize, but the one that's real, the people that are going to save our organizations, the ones that can be saved, not all are going to be saved, are our executive directors and our managing directors. And they've got their work cut out for them. And we rely on Leslie Maylin's great, her expertise and her passion.
Mm.
We do what the model suggests in the United States, which is 50%, 50%. They say they call it earned income, which is a tough term, because then what does that mean? The other's unearned income? But about 50%, they tell us that's the healthiest thing. About half of your income from ticket sales, tuition, etc., and the other half from fundraising. And that's generally we keep to that rule. You know, we'll go up or down depending on the year a little bit, but that's about what we do. You know, but all the ticket sales are, you know, they're gone.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
Tuition, there's a teensy bit of it, but most of that is almost all of it's gone. We rely on the kindness of our supporters and the generosity of our supporters, but you know, the economic situation is that they're doing their best now and they've been generous now, but who knows? Sorry, that's my oldest daughter calling from Colorado. Anyway, you know, how long can we count on that? You know, we're in a tough economic time, and it's not gonna change all of a sudden. So, you know,
do you get support from the city?
Yeah, we do. The city support mostly comes from Baltimore. And, you know, Baltimore City has a lot of needs. You know, there's a lot of stuff that needs attention. But they do support us mostly with the city. It's in terms of capital projects. So, you know, they helped us build our building. They help us make improvements to the building, things like that. The state of Maryland is very helpful to us, and that support comes in some capital, absolutely, but also in terms of operating as well. But the government funding as a whole amounts to, you know, 12%-ish of our total income. So it's not nothing, but it's you know, but it's individuals are what help us the most.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that's happened since we spoke in May was the killing of George Floyd, and that heinous act, which has sort of sent shockwaves around the world. And I know in this country, you know, we felt it, and arts organisations, companies are now reviewing their anti-racism policies and statements. And I know you, as artistic director, have issued a statement online on your website. As president of STAR, you've issued a statement on the STAR website. What is it that you think CSC can or should do when it reopens to support, how will it support the anti-racist agenda?
Yeah. So it's always been important to us. But clearly we're all understanding that no matter how much work we've done in it, there's more work absolutely has to be done. We're ever going to break out of this cycle. You know, we are, interestingly enough, we're in this middle of, as I mentioned before, the strategic plan. And we've been talking back in, I guess in the late fall, about issues of inclusivity. You know, we didn't use the word anti-racism at that point, because I think many of us are still getting used to that particular term.
Yeah.
But certainly addressing the systematic racism that exists in our society, in our arts community. I've got no easy answer for that, other than the fact that it has to be part of our work. And it's, look, making statements, that's fine. We need to do that, but that doesn't result in anything.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got to act.
Yeah.
And I don't know what those actions are yet. We have some ideas. I think we, along with a lot of other arts organizations, are looking for them. We're looking to organizations. Oregon Shakespeare Festival here in the U.S. has been an organization that's been keen on this kind of work and been working hard in the last decade or so. So we're looking to examples like the Oregon Shakespeare Festival, what's worked, what hasn't worked, because nobody's got a perfect track record. We have to do the work because we're in Baltimore City, and Baltimore City is a majority African American community. And if we profess to be a part of our community at all, we would, it would be absurd. It would be absurd for us to ignore our responsibilities in anti-racism and inclusivity in the work that. It's the whole reason many of us in Chesapeake Shakespeare Company are interested in the work in the first place. And that's that we think William Shakespeare's work gets at what is our shared humanity? What is the thing that we all share? And this issue of anti-racism and inclusivity it's all about what is it that we share, and what is it that makes us. I gave an address once. I talked about the us, the widening of us. It addresses how we describe ourselves, how we describe us. Do we describe us as, my family or my neighborhood, or college-educated people who like the arts, or is us as wide a net as we can make it? And I think our work is to expand that definition of us.
Two rather useful letters for your country, us.
Yeah.
What makes us, it's quite cute, isn't it? Wow. And so no one has any idea as to when theatres are going to be able to reopen yet. Have you got a provisional season mapped out, or you've just got to wait
Not
till
really.
close to the time?
Yeah, we had some, and every 2 weeks it changed. We go, okay, here's what we'll do. That's not going to work. Well, okay, we'll change it. Right now, we're just holding tight, until we get a better idea, of what the world looks like when this is over. As you mentioned, and we say it all the time, things change so quickly.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be involved in that exercise where we're just spinning our wheels, going, okay, this is what we'll do. No, all right, well, this is what we'll do. I think it needs to be thought.
Yeah. You had mentioned, you used the metaphor earlier on about handing over the reins. When you eventually hand over the reins to someone to take over your role, what is the legacy? What position do you want CSC to be in that would make you feel proud, I suppose, of what you've achieved, what the company's achieving?
Right. So, I'll turn 60 next year.
You're young.
And and I have no intention of doing. Look. I went out. The great Fred Adams, who I adore and had such great respect for, and I was out in Utah, not this summer 2018, and he was working the crowd, at 80, whatever he was. And I was so impressed by him. But I'm no Fred Adams.
I think there was only one Fred Adams.
Yeah. And I would much prefer to pass on, in a company in good, healthy shape than stay forever. I think that the things that we've been talking a lot about 20 years, I'm starting to think, as we are now about 20 years old, I'm starting to think about the next 20 years. and the idea of it beyond the founders. That's exciting idea, notion of this thing living beyond me. And that may not be possible. There may be a time that it says, you know what, it served its purpose. It did great works. But now it's time to close the doors. But I hope that won't be the case.
Yeah.
I think this idea of being a service to the community, part of the community, an arts organization that is connected and people treasure and feel a part of, if we can do that, and continue to, if we're at a place where we do that and we're planning on doing that in the future, that will give me great satisfaction.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, I think it's time for that lightning round. This is where I rub my hands with glee.
Well, see,
and watch you wriggle with pain.
I did all this pop culture stuff with you. Now I'm afraid you're going to give me like highfalutin intellectual stuff that I'll be like, I don't know.
No, I think it's quite fair. Here we go. Okay, you ready for it?
Yeah, sure.
Let me call up my questions here. Okay, lightning round. Here we go. Favorite Shakespeare film?
I like the Zeffirelli Hamlet.
Really?
I know it's not a big popular one, but I do.
You like Mel Gibson? Wasn't that Mel Gibson?
Yeah, that's why I call it the Zeffirelli Hamlet.
Dear, lovely. Okay, most memorable theatre experience as an audience member, obviously not in your own theatre.
All right, so I know this one right away. I was at Lincoln Center in 1983 or 4. I sat in the very last row of the second balcony for Derek Jacobi's Cyrano de Bergerac. He was doing it in rep with Much Ado About Nothing. I didn't get to see Much Ado About Nothing, and I saw the Cyrano and what's the actor that played Ragueneau ended up being a movie star. Anyway, it was, I just couldn't believe it. I sat in the last row of the second balcony and I was transfixed the whole time.
Wonderful. Which Shakespeare play would you save for posterity? They're all going to be burned apart from one. Which is the one you would save for posterity?
Oh. I'm going to say King Lear just because I like it better. I was going to say Hamlet, but King Lear has a special place for me, so I'm going to say King.
Okay. Coen Brothers or Tarantino?
Coen Brothers.
That's my nod to a popular question.
Yeah, Tarantino.
Okay. Which two Shakespeare characters would you want to invite over for dinner?
Two Shakespeare characters. Beatrice she's the best. And so she'd be a great dinner companion. Who else? Let's invite Benedict over too. Let's invite the two of them.
You're never going to get past the starter. Okay, now this is obviously the easy one. Name your 3 favorite directors currently working in Poland. That's my trick question for you.
Yeah.
I thought you had some ready answers with that one. I thought I grew up with I grew up in a town with a bunch of Italian Americans and Polish Americans, but for the life of me, I can't think of any of their names. Okay, you're forgiven. Glass half empty or glass half full?
3/4 full. Always.
Always 3/4 full.
Always, yeah. And yeah, people to a fault, because people will say it's only half full, Ian. No. It could be 3/4 full.
Okay, and what's in the glass?
What's in the glass?
What's your tipple? Yeah.
What's my what?
What's your preferred drink is what I'm getting at.
Oh, right.
What's the drink you want in that glass?
Right. So some people will know this, but most won't. That my wife has been having terrible health issues this year, and so she has not been able to drink. I've been on the wagon for 7 months.
Wow.
Really miss red wine. I really miss a nice cab. So that's yeah.
A nice cab is yours. Hey, Ian, I've really enjoyed this. This has been really fun, turning the tables on you and listening to you, and it's been wonderful to listen to you. So God bless, and best for everything. For your wife, obviously, for the theatre, for the whole situation we find ourselves in, yeah?
Thank you, my friend. And to you on your retirement.
Don't mention that word. No, it's fine. Okay. Bless. Thank you.
All right, Patrick. It was great to spend the time with you.